Welcome to a very special edition of the Alchemist channel, episode 5. And what makes this edition so special? It's all rich. No dopey, annoying brothers to hassle us, just me and you. They'll be back, but just not this week. What occasioned this particular episode was something that Representative Ocasio-Cortez said a couple of weeks ago. She declared that you don't make $1 billion, you take $1 billion. Dun dun dun. Now, Ocasio-Cortez, according to Wikipedia, went to Boston University. And maybe she took some economics courses there, or maybe she didn't. I don't really know. But I thought it would be useful to go over some basic economics because, like a lot of people still espousing socialism, she doesn't seem to get it. And I'm not hating on her, okay? I'm not hating on anybody. But I don't think she's very well informed. So let's see if we can inform her or inform people who think socialism is a good thing about some of the things that go wrong when you go socialist. The first lesson: capitalism breeds creativity. Socialism results in stagnation. And that's what we'll talk about today. So let's imagine that the world needs widgets, and that widgets make people's lives better. According to the socialist model, there's some evil capitalist who gets control of all the widgets because there's only a fixed amount of widgets available in the world. And once evil capitalist has control of the widgets, he hires workers and they sell the widgets to people who want widgets, and the vast majority of the money goes to the evil capitalist, who just returns peanuts to the workers and thus accumulates wealth based on the fixed number of widgets in the world. Now, of course, I'm oversimplifying here because everybody knows that you just don't mine widgets out of the ground, right? You got to have a source of thingamabobs and whatchamacallits. And of course, caltrops. You need caltrops in the supply chain to make your widgets. Yes, caltrops are a real thing. Now, making the widgets and selling the widgets makes lots of money for the evil capitalist. But as the evil capitalist makes more money on widgets, as they're more and more valuable, it opens the door for people like Dr. Meg here. And Dr. Meg has an idea. She sees how valuable widgets have become. And I've got a better way to make widgets. I can make them cheaper. And if I make them cheaper, I can sell them to a whole lot more people. And even though the cost per widget is less, the size of the market is so much bigger that Dr. Meg makes a whole lot of money, and our evil capitalists who try to monopolize the market, well, he's pretty much out of business. Now, this doesn't happen in socialist economies. Why? Because Dr. Meg was in Soviet Union, for example, and she said, hey, let's figure out a way to make widgets cheaper. Their response to the government would be, why? What's the point? There's no profit motive, therefore there's very little innovation. And that's consistently been the case with socialism. So how do we relate this to chemistry? Well, let's talk about aluminum. Now, aluminum in nature basically comes in some form of aluminum oxides, and there's a lot of different aluminum oxides, but alumina, Al2O3, is the most important. It's the final step in aluminum refining before you get to actual metallic aluminum. So let's just use alumina as representative of all aluminum oxides. The thing about alumina and other aluminum oxides is the oxygen is very possessive. If it were a spouse, it would have a restraining order filed on it because it does not want to give up the aluminum. For a long time, people knew that there was a lot of aluminum available on the earth and that it was a very useful metal. The problem was getting at it. And in 1886, two scientists, Charles Martin Hall on the left and Paul Héroult on the right, separately came up with the process to recover aluminum from aluminum oxides that was cheap and effective. And we should also mention that Charles Martin's sister, Julia Brainerd Hall, was also played a major part in making that discovery. So at both sides of the pond, all of a sudden in 1886, you have this miracle that happens because of innovation that's possible under capitalism. How did they do it? Well, it involves a substance called cryolite and electricity. And when you combine these things all together, basically, you are able to separate out pure aluminum very cheaply. So aluminum, overnight, just about, goes from being one of the most expensive metals in the world to one of the cheapest. And as a result of that, because it becomes cheap, it becomes a commodity that can be used to make all kinds of useful things, like airplanes, beer cans, automobile parts, cookware, power lines, softball bats, all sorts of things that are ubiquitous that we see today. And as a result, Charles Martin Hall gets rich, makes a lot of money, founds what eventually becomes the Alcoa Corporation. And Paul Héroult also gets rich. Interesting thing about Hall and Héroult is that they were born in the same year and they died in the same year, both at age 51, which is. Now, if you want to see this little tribute to capitalism, you need to go no farther than the National Mall and look up 555 feet to the top of the Washington Monument, where at the very peak, they topped off the Washington Monument in 1884 with a 6.25 pound hunk of pure aluminum. And they did that partly because it helped act as a lighting rod, but partly because it was the biggest hunk of aluminum that was available at the time, that anybody had at the time, and it was kind of a way of off. We're America. We can take one of the most expensive metals in the world and put it on the top of the monument to our greatest president, not knowing that in 2 years, aluminum would be on its way to being one of the cheapest metals in the world, as it is today. And I suggest to you that this would have never, ever happened in a socialist system. Take care. We'll see you next time.